What if I told you that the entire universe, every single star, every planet, even the thoughts firing in your brain right now, all of it comes from a single, vast consciousness? It sounds pretty out there, right? But it's an idea where ancient wisdom and modern science are starting to find some seriously fascinating common ground. So let's dive in and see just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
You know, this is a puzzle that even got to Albert Einstein. Why on earth should this massive, chaotic universe follow rules that are so logical and understandable? Why should our brains, these little biological computers, be able to figure out the math that runs reality? It's almost like the universe is speaking a language, and we somehow were born knowing the grammar.
And this is where things get really wild. On the left, you're looking at the cosmic web. That's the largest known structure in the entire universe, a map of how galaxies are laid out. And on the right, that's a neural network from inside a human brain. The visual similarity is it's absolutely stunning. But what's even crazier is that this isn't just a coincidence. It's not just skin deep. Yeah, when scientists actually ran the numbers on this, they were completely floored. Both of these systems, the cosmic and the neural, they organize themselves in almost the exact same way. They both build these incredibly complex networks that seem perfectly designed to process information as efficiently as possible. It's like they were built from the same blueprint for how to think.
So all of this startling evidence brings us to this huge, almost dizzying question. Could it be that the cosmos itself is thinking? Is the universe, in some way we can't quite wrap our heads around, actually conscious? Well, believe it or not, this very modern scientific question might just have a very, very ancient answer. And that's our cue to shift gears. We're going to move away from astrophysics for a minute and look at an ancient school of thought called Hermeticism, which pretty boldly claims to hold the key to this whole mystery. So, for anyone who's not familiar, Hermeticism is this really old philosophical tradition. The teachings are said to come from a figure named Hermes Trismegistus. And in the early 1900s, these ideas were gathered into a book called the Kybalion, which lays out 7 universal principles that supposedly govern all of reality. And at the very top, the first principle, the one that holds everything else up, is the Principle of Mentalism. It makes a pretty radical claim that the universe is completely mental. It says that everything we see, everything we touch, everything we experience, it's all just a creation happening inside the mind of a single infinite consciousness that the book calls the All. The Kybalion just lays it out there, plain and simple. And this isn't supposed to be a metaphor. The principle is saying that the actual substance of reality is something like mind stuff. This is the bedrock of the whole philosophy. And if it's true, it changes absolutely everything we think we know. Okay, so this is where it stops being about the cosmos and starts being about you. If the entire universe is mental, what does that mean for our own minds? What does that mean for our day-to-day reality? Let's bring this massive idea down to a personal level. Now, check this out. What you're seeing here isn't from some ancient text or a physicist's paper. It's from a Reddit user describing what they experienced during a deep meditation. They said they were shown that reality is basically a holographic light show projected by consciousness, and our senses just interpret it all as a solid world. It's a stunning, first-hand account of the principle of mentalism in action. And of course, an experience like that just completely shatters your worldview. It leads to some really disorienting questions. If it's all a projection, then who is everybody else? Are they just characters in my own mental movie? This is where the mind really starts to wrestle with what this all means. Which brings us to the most important part. Okay, it's one thing to think about all this, but if our reality really is mental, the Hermetic teachings say we can actually start to shape it. So, how do we go from being a spectator in the audience to being one of the creators of the show? Well, Hermetic philosophy offers a pretty clear roadmap. First, you have to master your thoughts. If the universe is mental, then your thoughts are literally the creative tools you have. Second, you harness vibration. Every thought, every feeling has its own frequency. So if you cultivate positive emotions, you start to attract similar experiences. And third, you have to get in sync with cause and effect, knowing that every thought you have creates a ripple. It's this mental mastery that unlocks all the other principles. All right, let's pivot back to science for a second, because this whole idea of your mind shaping reality, it might sound like pure philosophy, but it has some really strange and fascinating echoes in quantum physics. This is honestly one of the weirdest experiments in all of science. When you shoot tiny particles like electrons at a screen,
But you don't watch them, they act like waves. But the instant you set up a detector to see what they're doing, they snap into place and start acting like solid little particles. The simple act of observing, of paying attention, literally changes what happens in physical reality. The famous physicist John Wheeler put it perfectly. What he's saying is that reality isn't just out there, waiting for us. It's more like it exists in a cloud of possibilities until an act of conscious observation makes one of those possibilities real. It suggests that consciousness isn't just a spectator, it's an active participant in creating the universe. So, as we start to weave all these threads together, from the largest structures in the universe to quantum mechanics, from ancient texts to modern experiences, we're not left with some final, neat answer. What we're left with is an invitation to look at our world through a completely new lens. And I think this is the most important takeaway. The principle of mentalism isn't about trying to figure out what the universe is thinking. It's about recognizing that the universe is a thinking process, that the very fabric of existence is mental, it's intelligent, and it is alive. I absolutely love this final analogy from another Reddit user. It takes this huge cosmic idea and just makes it so personal and kind of beautiful. Maybe this whole complicated, messy, amazing universe is just a universal consciousness daydreaming, creating all of us within itself just so it doesn't have to be alone. And so that's where I want to leave you. If reality really is participatory, if the universe responds to us based on where we put our attention, then maybe the most important thing isn't what we know, but the questions we dare to ask. So, what question will you ask of your reality?